Good afternoon. Welcome to the 2026 International Conference in celebration of Library Day and Library Week. I'm Kyungmi Kim, and I'm honored to be the master of ceremony today. It's a rainy day today. For those of you who love books and libraries, I'm truly delighted to be an MC for this meaningful event. I'd like to thank you once again for your participation. In celebration of Library Day and Library Week 2026, the topic is a cultural landmark, a library embracing the community. So libraries are rapidly evolving into stay-oriented environments, spaces people inhabit comfortably, much like a neighborhood cafe or park. The goal is not simply to build striking structures, but to create spaces that reflect the unique character of each locality, places that draw people in naturally and transform the rhythms of daily life. Through case studies from Korea and abroad, we will explore what innovations in design and operation are needed to make libraries truly worth staying in. So this international conference would first begin with the keynote speech by Professor Jongryn, Yonsei University Graduate School of International Studies, followed by a presentation by Dr. Skye Patrick, titled Libraries as Social Infrastructure. And then moving on, we're going to have a presentation by Ms. Seo Ye-sun from Jeonju City. The topic is Birth of K-Library Connecting Communities. Then followed by presentation by Mr. Kuniaki Tanaka. And the topic is Yusara Community Library and Shinjo City Library Complex. And finally, Mr. Hyunjoon, CEO of Hyunjoon and Partners, would present on the topic of spatial meaning of libraries. When all the presentations are delivered, we're going to have general discussion sessions as well as a Q&A session. So please stay tuned till the very end of today's conference. Now let me introduce to you our distinguished guests and speakers. When I introduce them, please welcome them with a warm round of applause. We're joined by Mr. Yoon Hee-yoon, 8th Chair of the National Library Committee. Thank you. We're joined by Professor Jongryn from the Graduate School of International Studies, Yonsei University. We're joined by Skye Patrick, LA County Librarian and Director. Welcome. And we're joined by Ms. Seo Ye-sun from the Jeonju City in charge of library industry. Thank you. Then we're joined by Mr. Kuniaki Tanaka from the firm Kuma Kengo Associates. And also we're joined by Professor Ko Jae-min of Architecture from Suwon University. Last but not least, we have Ms. Choi Yoo-jin, who's leading the National Youth Library. Thank you. We would like to thank all our distinguished guests for gracing our event with their presence. And this is a hybrid format event, which means that you can join us through YouTube, 412 Library Day. And also we provide Korean, English, and Japanese simultaneous interpretation services. If you need one, please use a receiver provided on site. And for those of you joining us virtually, you may use your desired language channel on YouTube. And also on our website, library.kr, if you click on live stream, then you can directly connect it to the YouTube channel. As for the materials, you can visit the National Library Committee to find or look for relevant presentation materials. Now, before we begin the international conference, we'd like to hear from Mr. Yoon Hee-yoon, the 8th Chair of the National Library Committee. Please welcome him with a big warm round of applause. Good afternoon and welcome. The National Library Committee has established the fourth development plan for libraries, and we're entering the third year of this plan. Under this fourth plan, we have three core values: warm-hearted journey together, community growth, and sustainable future. So these are the three core values, and our vision is a library where everyone's happy. For the last 30 years, serving as a professor, my philosophy has always been on four anchors, or four pillars, I would say. The first pillar is communication, because libraries need to ensure communication with society at large. When communication is possible, we can create empathy, a broader consensus. And then it is possible that we take this journey together. When we journey together, we should also become happy together. So these are four key pillars that underlie my philosophy deep in my heart. And today, as we're hosting this international conference, the topic is a cultural landmark, a library embracing communities. This aligns with the second policy goal of ours. Over the years, across society, if you look at the image or standing of libraries, libraries have been a standalone or isolated island. So people see libraries as not that essential. I don't think that's the fault of libraries, but rather, I think it's because our society has not been that much interested in libraries, and it's because our society just could not afford it, because making living ends was the top priority. But now Korea is about to become an advanced nation. What I like to highlight is, when it comes to reading, we need to move away from economic greed or materialism. We cannot no longer depend or revolve around materialistic society or money-making purposes. Why is it that in Korea, we always say economy, culture, and society? So the order signifies the importance of different topics, because economy always comes first. But on the basis of culture, without a strong cultural foundation deeply embedded into our society, I don't believe that people in Korea can truly thrive or prosper. When you think of our society and our nation, what's the aspiration that you have, all of us have, about our nation and society? We face a lot of social challenges. Greed is abound across streets. And where can we find the source of this challenge? It's because of ignorance. Ignorance begets greed. And for us to eliminate ignorance, what do we need? We need a priming water, I would say. And this priming water could be reading and books. If we do not unleash such priming water, and if we simply have physical spaces, then it's not going to serve its purpose. So I think libraries should serve as the intellectual base camp. Without this starting point, it's going to be only a sand castle that we're building. At this very stage, we have politicians, we have social key opinion leaders, and they should be prioritizing libraries, not just economic matters. If our sole focus is on economy, then it's not possible to bridge the gap between this materialism and social challenges. Then where should we start? For us to ensure that culture bears its fruits, we have necessary preconditions, which include enriched soil so that roots can take shape firmly, and then branches would come out, sprouting, and then fruits would come into existence. But let's look at what politicians are doing today. They are only looking at the fruits, the result. For us to have strong roots, we need soil, equivalent to books, knowledge, and culture. So the Article 1 of our library law says libraries should be contributing to the advancement of our nation's society. So indeed, culture is something that evades our easy definition. It can be defined as culture, knowledge, but today many people refer to libraries as a complex cultural space. But at the same time, they also claim that libraries should not be just a space of books. I think that's an absurd idea. Without books, how can we have debates about libraries without mentioning it as a repository of books and knowledge? So let me rephrase it again. Books, they are the very original soundtrack of libraries. If I use analogy, only based upon it, we can have variations and a revised versions of it. Then culture and education and the playground would come into being. So books and reading serving as priming water, and the libraries can serve as a intellectual base camp. Only when that happens, we can ensure that we have a true intellectual playground in our society. And this is critical to make sure that we become a cultural nation and a cultural society with dignity. So where's the starting point? Now we're celebrating this. It was back in 2013 when the library law was revised. The Library Day and Library Week was celebrated first. What was my intention back then? I wanted to enhance awareness of libraries across our society so that librarians can take a strong pride in what they do. So these were two overarching goals back then, and then 2012, the revised version of the law was passed into law, and then tomorrow we will be marking the 4th Library Day. So it's been a long journey over the years. And for those of you working in libraries, it was due to your and owing to your hard work. And I do respect what you do. But still, society is not so interested in all this. According to statistics, around 70% of respondents say that they rarely read books. I think this applies to Japan or the United States. Why do you go to the library? What's the purpose of your library visits? And then respondents would say, it is to access books and information. These are the sole purpose of people visiting libraries. And a while ago, we had this slogan, Maker Space, Metaverse, and artificial intelligence. So these are emerging agendas, but they are never the ends. They should be means. So books contained in library and then lending books, accessing books. And without these abundant experiences, I don't think libraries would find its true purpose. And I believe down the road, I hope that our society would appreciate what libraries have to offer. But still, I don't see that we don't have a true journey together. But it will come soon, I believe. I cannot live without my neighborhood library. I need to live in places where there are libraries. I think this future will come quite soon. So even though you're struggling, I hope it will all worth it in the end. As the chair of the National Library Committee, my mandate ended yesterday, I think. So it's not the right occasion for me to deliver these remarks, but I wanted to highlight our common challenge. And this is a day that we all need to celebrate. So I accepted the offer to deliver my congratulatory remarks. Today we're joined by Professor Jongryn and Dr. Skye Patrick. And we have speakers and Professor Ko Jae-min from Suwon University. I cannot thank you enough for your contributions on this beautiful day and meaningful day. I hope we have informative occasion and event today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So it is a great opportunity for us to remind us why librarian books are needed. All in the end, the knowledge. So this is a soil, the book is a soil, and based on that, the library will grow and it connect the people. And in this international forum, we are going to talk about the role and possibility of library. Now, we begin the international forum celebrating Library Day 2026. To begin with, we are going to invite keynote speaker, libraries as anchors of the city. Please welcome Professor Jongryn from Yonsei University with a round of applause. Please welcome. Let's give him a big round of applause. Good to see you all, everyone. Thank you for having me. As you are aware, I'm not an expert in this field. However, from my perspective, talking about library could be interesting as well, I hope. So city and the library, the relationship between the two, our topic says all, actually. So the demand of the library is increasing. So the operation of library is not enough. It needs to support the community. We've been heard that so a long time. And now we are reviving the communities. We need to revive the communities. And that gives such a pressure and burden to the libraries. And there are many good cases in Korea with regard to the libraries. And I believe there's great possibilities and potential is actually limitless. And libraries, other than other public institutions, have many ways and possibilities to contribute to the communities. And the person like me, and it could be fun to be active in the communities. There are difficult times as well, but if we look at the positive side, it is fun to be active in the communities. Well, communities, things are not so easy, but all members of the communities need to be active. And I believe the libraries will play a big role. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not an expert in this field in the library, but I like to share my experience. In February, I went to San Francisco. And one of my interests is external areas or outside cities. And after COVID-19 and young people has been moved from the inner city, and they no longer need the office because they stay and work at home. So they are living in suburb areas. And Burlingame, it is a small, it's close to the San Francisco, like 30 minutes. It's a rich area, actually. And I used to live there and work there. And the business in downtown is well established in Burlingame. And I met the college couple, and we took a dinner and we took a walk. And then I asked my friend, what is the anchor of the city? So I'm an economist of the street, so I always look for anchor of the city whenever I visit any cities. So if we visit the businesses, there are hundreds or 200 businesses. But if we take a look at the stores, the anchor could be stores that actually attract the people. Like 10 anchors will be well-established. 10 anchors could be sufficient to make a well-established business district. And I asked, what is the anchor of the city? And my friend said, it's a library. I was surprised. So I travel a lot. A library is the anchor or take the lead of the downtown. I never heard of that, actually. Of course, there are some places role as a library. However, in the business district, like a Starbucks or independent bookstore could be anchor, but there are other cultural institutions, but libraries that come as a surprise to me. And I asked my friend to let's go. And I did not know about the trend of the libraries. I took a look. So the architecture is important, like the statue of lion in the center of downtown, of course. Like a pedestrian environment is good, so a lot of people take a walk and they take a shopping. In architectural perspective, it's very attractive and it serves as a landmark. And there's a bookstore, and that come as a surprise to me. So, bookstore in the library, and I cannot show you many photos. However, I went in the left side, there's a cafe in the library, and the right side, there's a bookstore. And I thought it's different. In the library, bookstore in the library, I think it's a good idea. So independent bookstore and the library find a way to coexistence. I'm going to talk about that later. And I asked my friend, so they do not buy and sell the books, but the books they sell is donated books. And that could help the financial support to the library. So I asked more people to donate more books. So that is a structure. So that's a bookstore within the library. So library need to play an important role. However, financially, they're not always sufficient. So we need to have an entrepreneurship. So I thought it was fun. And that is very symbolic. But libraries are participating a lot in the communities that come across to my mind. That was my impression. I'd like to know about the current status of the Korean libraries. So they co-work with the communities, or they sometimes support the communities. And if we take a look at what's happening in the small cities, some are obsolete, or so we do not have many places that make people gather and stay. That's called the anchor. We need more anchors so people can take a walk. But in the city, it's very difficult to see many people walking. Seoul is actually in a good position. However, other than some part of Seoul, 8 or 9 in the evening, the stores are closed. So it's very different from when I grew up. There are many reasons. I believe the government is thinking about that as well, to revive what kind of city that we need. My personal opinion is, on the streets, I want to see more people walking and being active in the city. I think that's more desirable. So things are not so easy. So somebody from the public participation is required. And usually we say landmark. Well, there's an anchor. That's a better word, I believe. It's more iconic. Landmark seems to be more iconic architecture, DDP, in Dongdaemun. But this library, National Library, is a landmark, but it's difficult to see on the main street. But when it comes to landmark, we more talk about landmark, but I believe anchor is more important. It's going beyond the iconic architecture. It serves as a hub. This is where residents repeatedly visit. So we need more anchor in the city. That is my personal ideas. Neighborhood bookstore serve as a role, and cafe, library could serve as an anchor. So library need to serve as an anchor of the city. Why libraries? Well, it is very similar to the bookstores. Well, I believe I say it's a street business. Why I have thought about that? Back in 2002, Seoul has been changed. Back in 90s, Seoul was a city like downtown and the inner cities. When we grew up, if we say, oh, I go to downtown, that means where I live is a suburb, but whatever we do, we always go to downtown. There was Gwanghwamun and Jongno, Myeongdong. However, in the mid-20s, 2000, so newly developed area has been rising, like Garosu-gil, Hongdae, Itaewon in Seoul, and Samcheongdong. These areas, they used to be a residential area. However, they turned out to be hot places. It draws a lot of people's attention. And that trend has been continued. So Seongsu-dong, Hannam-dong, that is a tourism destination in Seoul, that has narrowed the gap between the northern and southern part of Korea, Seoul. And in the areas like Jeonju, different cities like Jeonju or Busan, overall, mostly the cities are not in a best situation. However, some areas are doing better. Why is that? The role of the SMEs, like a Starbucks, like a small bookstore, change the books, a small store, transforming the street. And we start talking about that, small changes. However, libraries, it's more recent, I believe. A library serve as an anchor of a city. That's very recent idea. But until now, I've been lecturing a lot, but it's I believe, my first time to be invited by the library. Because big companies, they draw a lot of attention because they want to know why cities are changing. So they always want to analyze. So I will go to Christian church to give a lecture. The people are declining. So some of the big churches has a business model like a big companies, so they want to recruit new Christians. So they serve the communities and they have like a welfare activities. So they have a keen interest in the communities as well. So that is an overall Korean trend. Then why library has that request? There are many success stories by area. Then what kind of libraries can play a role as an anchor of the city? From the urban perspective, we need to make an approach. Well, I'm not sure if I put the right words. The reality of libraries in Korea. There are conditions to serve as an anchor, and I don't see many of the Korean libraries that can serve as an anchor. Well, this library, it is a complex, and it's a large size. It's right next to the big city, big street. And it is not close to the residential area. Then which library has the structure to coexist with the residential area? It is very difficult to find. So the library needs to be located in the middle of the residential area. The same is true with the college. In Korea, what is the college that has revived the residential area or the area? That is Hongik University. The Hongdae is right in the city. Well, Ewha Women's University, it is right next to, adjacent to the residential area. However, Yonsei University and Korea University, there is a huge, big streets. And Seoul National University, that's the most difficult, challenging because structurally it is in the middle of the mountain. It's very difficult to be connected with the residential area. So whenever I visit some areas, so if we built museums, libraries, we need to consider all these factors to design and selecting a site. And the public institutions serve as an anchor. A museum could be a good example. Why museums? Usually, depending on the location, museum can be survive or thrive. The first is Samcheong and Deoksu and Gwacheon. These museums in these areas, well, it takes a whole day to visit Gwacheon Museum. So it's a day trip. It takes day trip to visit certain museums. However, museum in Samcheong-dong area, that is in the inner city or that is in the downtown. So I spend 1 or 2 hours in the museum, and then I can visit some small stores or business area, business district nearby. So Daegu Museum, it is like a remote areas in the middle of mountain, out of nowhere. The same is true with the library and museum. Why is that? In the past, in the end, they believed that this will be, our city will expand and this mountain area will become a city as well, part of city as well. The example is Yonsei University. That was a Sinchon county, very small area. Back in 1990s, population does not grow as fast as it used to be. So we need to collect all the resources in the middle. So this issue, the old downtown has been declined, and this has been a new trend. It is the industry is going down, so we cannot set up factories. Then what do we need to do? We need to do many projects with regard to culture or museum. The same is true with the museum. What is the condition of good museum? From the landmark perspective and the aesthetic perspective, architecture, art, and global prestige, or how it can be included into community physically or culturally, or local approach, or local curation, or local authors, or book club for residents, or cooperation with the independent bookstores. So what is a good library? So from the perspective of scholastic approach of the library, which is a good library? Well, we need to answer the 3 questions. However, I have 3 things. The aesthetic perspective. This one of the example is the Guggenheim Bilbao Museum. It's one of the most successful museum. And it used to be a 60,000 population city, but it is a world-renowned city because of the one museum. Frank Gehry has designed this museum, and I visited last year. I've been fooled because the location of the museum, I thought it was a remote area, but it is right in the city. Right next to the museum is Havano. It is a newly built city. So in the Europe area, like an old town, in the process of the 19th industrialization, one of the richest area. It is right next to the good area. Structurally and physically, it is well connected to the residential area. And right next to the building, it's a big building. It's a world-renowned energy company. So once we get into the museum, aesthetically, it's a Frank Gehry work, but location and connection itself, it is naturally connecting to the communities. So that is a structure itself. I did not know. So local creation, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not sure it is recruiting local artists or not. That is an aesthetic approach, but actually I have visited to the Guggenheim Bilbao, and the social model is well reflected. There are many good examples. Tate Modern in London, in the museum, in the library, if the library has a map, it is a good indicator that they have a keen interest in the communities. So it is providing all this detailed information of the community, the area nearby. This is Tate Modern and Shakespeare Theater Grove. Shakespeare Grove is there. And about 800 meters of their borough market. This is traditional market. And the southern part was obsolete area, but the Tate Modern Museum revived the whole area in the south. And London made a big effort. So physically and culturally, they connect the library and the community, so it revives the communities. So these are the cases, and I look forward to seeing more cases in Korea as well. So I took a look at the National Library. I tried to find a map. That's not the case in Korea. So a local creator or SMEs, what is the if you want to become an anchor, you always have to have a map, neighborhood map. Where am I in this area? What can I do in these communities? And to answer these questions, to become an anchor. Of course, we can put a lot of budget and that can be a center of the attention. However, the map is very important. And I'm not sure if library can do that. This is a Seto Museum. This is a local approach. And this is made and curated by the local residents. And if there's a digital library, you don't need to have all the physical books. And we can do the curation of the books with the consultation with the residents. The same is true with the museum. Because of time pressure, I need to move on as fast as I can. What are the lessons learned from the library and museum? Of course, aesthetic or social approach and local approaches, and these are the things that we need to answer. And what is the criteria or how each approach defines success?
So what do we learn from bookstores? I wonder what your response would be. We are a different domain. We're public, and bookstores belong to the private sector. But from my perspective, when we value the culture of reading, bookstores have a big role to play. If you visit them, we have independent bookstores in a neighborhood which is being supported. I don't know whether we're really reviving this, whether small businesses are really reviving and reinvigorating the neighborhood. We have Seongsimdang, a local bakery, and then Terra Rosa, a local coffee. So bakeries and cafes often play big roles in reviving their local communities. We have similar cases across the nation. Then what happens to independent bookstores? Do they have a role to play in reviving their neighborhood? For example, Thanks Book. In 2009, we had a first-generation independent bookstore, and that made great contributions to reviving their community. So it happens, but for the general public, it's often cafes and bakeries. So coffee, bakery, and independent stores. These three have a critical role to play in reviving local economy and neighborhood. But from the commercial perspective, we have massive challenges coming from online. Think of Amazon or Barnes & Noble. We have local bookstores as well. The success of Amazon, I think it's so popular that I don't need to mention it. Of course, in Korea, we have big franchise bookstores, including Kyobo Bookstore, Gwanghwamun. Gwanghwamun itself has an important cultural heritage, serving as an anchor. According to recent news, it's a mecca of instant gathering, I would say. I didn't know what it truly means, but its implication is Kyobo Bookstore already has earned symbolic status and meaning. But is it really a landmark or anchor? It's an underground bookstore. And then But I think we have better cases to refer to overseas. For example, Barnes and Noble, a franchise, almost died because of Amazon, but it successfully revived. And it's because it positioned itself as a community hub, a social infrastructure. And if you visit there, we have a curation of local authors, community authors, and community materials for books. So we have a local store here, and we learn a lot from local stores. So going local, there's no exception. Even department stores are trying to go local. In the age of artificial intelligence, we need to produce irreplaceable content like no other. And local would be the most realistic alternative or option. Here we have the world's biggest independent bookstore located in Portland, Powell's. Please visit this place. It's massive and tremendous. There's been up and downs in the city of Portland, but with this book and just visiting this bookstore would justify your visit. We're familiar with Kyobo Bookstore, and here it's even bigger than Kyobo Bookstore. So you can tour around the Portland downtown, and please visit this bookstore. So online bookstore actually started with this bookstore. It was not Amazon, in fact. And Aladdin's business model also was inspired by this, selling used books. And Tsutaya, a Japanese bookstore, Tsutaya Daikanyama in Japan, living together with communities. So it's 100% matched with its local neighborhood if you visit this bookstore. In terms of architecture, yes, but also in terms of atmosphere, it's integrated into this neighborhood. If you look around our local bookstores, I don't find many that seamlessly integrate with its neighborhood. So when this Japanese bookstore started its business, one of its mission was to showcase Daikanmaya's local culture. So from the very onset, it was its intention. Now, local. I emphasize local a lot, whether it is a big bookstore, a franchise. I think being local is the way forward, where our survival strategy could be found. Now, we can learn from museums and we can learn from bookstores. What do we learn? It could be a bit of exaggeration, but the answer is go local. That's our solution. Because of time constraints, I'd like to skip these slides. And for libraries to become a local anchor, there are 6 conditions. Whether it is a big company or an individual or a small business, I think these all apply. First of all, there should be a local concept. I talked about Tsutaya, and its concept was to be inspired by its local community. How about Jeonju? How do you get there? I don't know it's a viable solution, but if we have a local library in Jeonju, it can attract more tourists. And I think this is an unavoidable path forward. We cannot have everything, and we need to curate locally distinctive content and alignment with local resources. We need to find something that is distinctive to a specific place. And then second, architecture, the openness towards neighborhood. And also walkability, that's key. But in Korea, walkability is not really considered or valued in Korea because of relevant constraints. And then thirdly, architectural environment. We can think of alleyways, and we can think of surrounding environments. For example, if there are 4-lane or wider roads beside a library, that library will never become an anchor. We need to create more detailed alleyways that supports walkability. And then fourth, content. And also, online competitiveness is something that we need to guarantee. Instagram is really critical these days in terms of brand power. As we are at the National Library, Should I count the number of hashtags attached to it? Or a public institution, Instagram, doesn't matter, you may say so, but for a facility to become a landmark, the number of hashtags matters. And a neighborhood level, it could be 20 million in Hongik University. Seongsu-dong, late mover, 4 million hashtags. So it should be at the million level for a certain place to become really hot. And for a national library like this one, I think the number of hashtags would be less than 10,000. So you may say, or a public institution, it's not really a matter that we should be concerned with, but it's unavoidable. You would find a competition. If you want to become a landmark, you need to attract the people. And this means that you have an increased number of hashtags online as well. So speaking of independent bookstores, they are already being supported. For example, independent publications and then financial support. But there should be, I think, novel models at a more smaller municipality level. I think at least at city or county level, we need to have independent bookstores, many of them. For each locality, for example, 10 independent stores, and also library. For each library, we can think of 10 independent bookstores, and if that happens, then we can say that the neighborhood is strong in terms of book accumulation. And rather than a faraway neighborhood, we need to focus on downtown, city, inner city. So there are 6 directions that I'd recommend for Korean libraries in receiving support and planning as well. You're already doing a good job, but going forward, I hope we would have more local anchors in the shape of libraries. I've met my deadline. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Professor Mo Jongryn. Thank you very much for your presentation. That was our keynote speech. Space, content, and community, and the stay-oriented experience that will determine the competitive edge of libraries. The future of libraries lies in embodying the identity of communities. You showed us several case studies to refer to. Thank you very much.
We're going to invite the next speaker as a social infrastructure. We're going to invite Dr. Skye Patrick. If you need a interpretation service, please set channel number 1 for Korean. Please welcome Dr. Patrick with a round of applause. Please welcome her with a round of applause.
Good morning, or it's morning for me. I'd like to thank Professor Jongryn. That was a great presentation. I was able to keep up with him for the most part, and he is on to something, so I suggest you listen to him. Okay, so libraries as social infrastructure. As the speaker mentioned, my name is Dr. Skye Patrick, and I am coming to beautiful Seoul, Korea from Los Angeles County, California. And today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how libraries in the United States, specifically in Los Angeles and Los Angeles County, how we have evolved to become critical social infrastructure. And again, Professor Jongryn kind of alluded to some of this in his presentation. But before I do that, I want to just provide you a little bit of context about who we are. And so you can see here in the top left, this is the United States, and you can see California, the most populous state in the Union. Down below, you'll see a small purple outline. That's the Los Angeles County, and then the bigger purple is the county, and then the orange is the city of Los Angeles. And I contextualize this for you because I know my dear friend John Szabo came to speak at this conference a couple of years ago. So we are partners, but we are different library systems. They are orange, we are purple. You can see our statistics over here on the side. So another important part of this is that Los Angeles County has 88 cities in this area. And so we are a huge organism, a huge area, lots of people, 10 million people in the county of Los Angeles. I really liked what Dr. Yoon said earlier about libraries being a place to be happy together. I'm going to talk a little bit about ways in which we think we can help with that, we can support. The thing that I want to start with is that for us, our library isn't simply a repository of books. Our library is a microcosm of its community. Again, you heard the previous speaker talk about that a little bit. So reimagining the role of libraries, what does that mean? This is not a one-time effort. If I leave you with anything, I want to leave you with this idea of iterations of libraries and the ways in which libraries support its community. I have said this time and time again, and this may not be a popular thought in Korea, but libraries are not about books. Libraries are about people. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. In the US, libraries position themselves as community hubs. Again, the previous speaker just spoke about that. And we are a place where people belong, and they learn, and they connect, and they grow, and they access support through the public library. In our libraries, and I saw this here today in the National Library here, we have a lot of art and public art installations. A lot of flexible community space and study rooms and different ways in which we are designing space and designing programs to meet the needs of our local customers. Sometimes you might find a program at our La Mirada library that you're learning to make kimchi. Or maybe you are at another library where you see there are language classes or music classes. We have eco-friendly bookmobiles that deliver books and services to communities across the county. And then we have mental health support for those customers and neighbors who might be experiencing mental health issues. I spoke to my interpreter today, and she said to me, she made me aware that you may not have similar issues that we do in the United States and in the county of Los Angeles, but we have a huge homeless population, and we do provide services to those people. So libraries in the States are moving beyond this sort of outdated image of itself as just a place for books, but we're becoming more welcoming, and we are, in fact, becoming more of an anchor, more of a community hub. Our libraries are vibrant. They're modern. They function as cultural centers and anchors, as I mentioned. And for us, it's not about whether or not how we evolve, but whether or not to evolve. But the question really is how do we evolve? And how do we evolve to reflect the communities that we're here to serve? So we do this through reverse engineering, essentially. In order for us to remain strategic, we start by asking the right question. And then from there, we reverse engineer that work. We don't begin with the program. We begin with the people. And how we do that is through polling, essentially. So LA County Library has developed a 5-year strategic plan to make sure that we're aligning our mission and our programs and services to what our community needs. So again, we are not assuming that we know what they need, but we ask them what they need. We collected feedback most recently from 1,100 participants in something called a community visioning session. And these are essentially a large format group focus groups, online surveys, interviews with public leaders, and sessions of cross-functional staff. Why do we do that? because we want to ensure our future. We want to ensure that we have the kind of program and services for the future. I understand through our previous presenters, through Dr. Yoon, I believe his name was, that you all are challenged with this here in Korea. So I'll leave you with a couple of things to think about. So design thinking, we did this work with our staff so that they also had they could actively participate in the creation of what our libraries are and what they would be. So out of those design thinking events, we came up with a new mission statement. And I think this really squarely associates us with libraries as a cultural center. Our mission statement is, LA County Library belongs to our community and serves as a portal to learn, grow, and succeed. You'll note that there's not one time that we mention books. Not because we don't love books and we don't understand that books are important, but we understand books as one essential active way to help people with literacy. There are many other ways that we have found that we can prioritize literacy through different avenues. So our 4 strategies are also very simple. We belong to our community. We advance partnerships. We raise our potential, and this is our staff, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then we tell our story through marketing, through the hashtags, through communication, through putting our brand out there. We've also gone through a tremendous rebranding effort. You'll see a lot of photos, a lot of color in my presentation, and that is by design. That is by design because we want to show you sort of this beautiful, chaotic place that the public library can be and often is in the United States. So expanding services and partnerships. This is one of the ways in which we really try to address our community needs. We can't do everything alone. You'll see me go over many, many topics this morning or this afternoon. And what I want to drive home for you is that public librarians don't do all of this work. A lot of this work is done through partnerships, and that's what makes it possible to be so extraordinarily useful. Many times we base these partnerships on communities' needs, on the community's request. And so you'll see here, and there are several examples here in this slide. So a couple of things that we've done. We've launched an in-person tutoring program called STAR Tutoring, and this is a really essential part of the modern day 21st century library because we are so adjacent to education. We have credentialed instructors in reading and math for young people. We've done this for 2 years. We've seen a 20% increase in test scores for young people. So the data speaks for itself. We've also enlisted homework help. And so we usually bring in young people, college-age employees, to work with these groups of young people to help support their educational journey. We have classic literacy programs, and I don't think I need to go over that. You all are a room of librarians. We circulate hotspots and mobile laptops for people who need them. So again, a lot of our social infrastructure supports people who are possibly on the margins, or sometimes they just don't have that kind of extra income. So this is the ways in which we support them. At our library, we have 10 credentialed mental health clinicians. So we call them MSWs, and I'm not sure if you have the equivalent here in South Korea. But this is a really important pivot for libraries who center themselves as social infrastructure to be able to have that kind of mental health support for our communities. We have tool lending libraries where we offer power washers or bicycle repair kits or cooking utensils or hammers. And so we're really trying to support this idea of DIY, do it yourself, and bring people back into the library through different kinds of programs. We have music lessons. We circulate music instruments. We have guitars and keyboards and piano, and then we have actual lessons for free at the library. I saw some of these potential programs here through your maker spaces over in the other building. Lights, Camera, Access. This is a program that we have initiated that really helps with the creative economy. We live in Los Angeles County. We are the creative capital of the world. Maybe you feel differently about that. But because of that, we've taken the opportunity as libraries to be proactive and provide resources for people who desire to be a part of that that creative economy. I could go on and on. We have pocket translators and expungement clinics, and we actually give out free diapers and menstrual products in some of our library locations. We also have programs that are geared towards very specific communities, fathers and babies, LGBTQ communities, faith-based communities. So all of these examples are just to kind of show you how we are meeting the needs of our customer base. One of the other, we have actually 2 signature programs, and I just want to touch on these because I think it's important, particularly at this point in time where this South Korean library, this library in Seoul, Korea, you're trying to really reimagine yourself and see yourself as a community hub or community anchor. We have, you can do that and still stay true to your essential values and morals, such as reading and writing. These are still very critical to public libraries. And because of that, we have 2 programs that we have initiated this year. We have one called One Book, One Coast, where we bring all 3 West Coast states together to read the same book. We're reading George Tacade's They Called Us Enemy, if you're curious, this year, where we have over 220 library systems who have joined us, making that almost, I think we have almost 1,500 locations reading the same book. This is an incredible program. We also have another program called the Next Chapter Writers Summit, where we have a full day of in-person talks for people who desire to become writers. They have access to consultants. They have access to literary agents and to editors. This is a really critical program so that we can, again, show up for our community in ways in which they have shared with us that they would like us to. I share all of these examples with you because this is how you become a community hub. You become a community hub and cultural center by listening and then offering community-based programs that matter to your community. So libraries as engines of literacy. I don't want you to lose the thread of literacy. It's still important. Books are still important. What I am attempting to share with you is that books are not the sole support system that libraries are today, at least as it stands in the United States. So literacy is foundational. I think we all know that. But literacy is also multidimensional. And I think this is where Dr. Yoon and I might have a slight but friendly disagreement. We provide different ways and multidimensional ways of learning. So that includes books, but that includes programs, that includes discourse, that includes analytics and data and AI and all of these different avenues in which our communities really do learn. All people don't learn from books. And so we understand that, and we understand that because we ask the questions. So bridging the digital divide, this also goes into the idea of the laptop lending program that I mentioned, of all of our libraries having gigabit, connectivity in our 87 locations. This also goes to the fact that we have artificial intelligence and machine learning courses for our communities so that they are well aware and that they are not afraid of the future. We've also taught them to be highly analytical and maybe critical of artificial intelligence and machine learning, because we know that machine learning can hallucinate. We also know that there is inherent bias embedded in this new platform, and we're trying to deliberately teach people how to navigate this new world of technology. And this is what we do. This is the ways in which we help bridge the digital divide. I mentioned we have Wi-Fi, we have public computers, hotspot lending programs, and Wi-Fi in our parking lots at night when we close our buildings, because Los Angeles is another area where people do not walk, they drive. And a lot of people find themselves needing internet. And so we leverage our parking lots at our 87 locations, and we provide this service even after hours. Excuse me. Okay, so libraries as safe havens and places of belonging. This is really, I think, also very critical when you think about libraries and how we support our communities. Libraries as anchors, we preserve the cultural memory, the intellectual freedom, and the community's identity. Again, the previous lecturer mentioned this. Libraries are safe havens, and so we are hyper-local, and each library has to be different, and it has to reflect your community and provide the kinds of services that your community asks for. So for us, this means that we have free summer lunches at some of our libraries. We provide diapers and menstrual products at other libraries. We provide vaccinations and flu shots at yet other libraries. And on occasion, we have free meals over the summer for young people who are not in school. Our libraries are also youth safe zones, and I apologize, I don't know enough about Seoul, but we have a lot of kids who are at risk of being incarcerated or finding themselves in trouble with the law. So what we've tried to do is to create these youth safe zones that youth can come into any of our libraries, and if they're experiencing any kind of danger or any kind of threat of violence, they know that our libraries are safe. They know that we have programs to support them. We're also cooling centers. Copy that. We're also cooling centers. In Los Angeles, it gets hot, over 100 degrees very often. And so our communities leverage our space to maintain their temperature. It's a very useful way to use libraries. And so for a lot of those spaces, we do programming. We actively take advantage of people coming into our libraries to use us in ways that they hadn't anticipated needing us. So I guess what I'm trying to leave you with is, don't waste a good crisis. If you have a library space, use it in a way that people need, in these unexpected ways, and show up. And so people say, oh, I didn't know the library did that. Or I didn't know that I could get a power washer from the library. I didn't know that I could participate in an art program at my library. These are the ways in which we have learned to become culturally relevant and becoming that community hub that everyone is talking about. So here in the corner here, you'll see this is the book we're reading called They Called Us Enemy in May. This is the one that I mentioned for all 3 states that we're going to read. It's going to be a phenomenal program. You'll be able to look at it on YouTube if you care. So in addition to being the critical safety net and resources, we pride ourselves on being civically minded and a cultural hub, and especially for those who have limited experiences and they wouldn't otherwise have access to it. So once again, our predecessor mentioned museums. Not all museums have free days. So what we've tried to do is leverage our buildings, leverage our footprint to ensure that you can come in and see the opera at some libraries. You can come in and see Shakespeare's plays, or you can consider Plato or the Stoics. All of these ways in which our libraries show up, where there are these are options, but there are options that they have a financial component to them. They have a financial fee. All of our programs are free. So libraries as social infrastructure. This goes back to, I hope I've left you with some ideas, but to close here, the central idea is that libraries are essential to the social infrastructure. LA County is more than a system of buildings and books. We are a system of support. And if you could maybe consider your own libraries as a system of support for your communities, then maybe this threat that I hear from our previous presenters would start to minimize. If you start thinking about libraries beyond your collection and start thinking about libraries by way of the communities that you serve, maybe you can start to mitigate that fear, is what I hear, that your libraries will become irrelevant. We must pivot as a profession across the globe. We must provide avenues of support. And lastly, we also have an opportunity to show how libraries can support people in the 21st century. So with that, I think I'm open for questions. No? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was Dr. Petrier. We are going to have a Q&A session after discussion session. We look forward to communicating with the floors as well. So today's lecture shows us the library are expanding beyond places for knowledge. They are becoming a social infrastructure that creates belongings and connection for everyone. We hope libraries will continue to create greater change at the center of local communities. We will now take a short break before presentations. We're going to resume at 3:25 for the case presentations. Thank you.
네, 여러분 즐거운 휴식.
Did you enjoy your break? Now we're going to take a look at the case presentations. First, we're going to invite Ms. Seo Ye-sun, Director of Library Industry Division of Jeonju City, with the theme of the birth of K-Libraries Connecting Communities. Please welcome her with a round of applause. Hello everyone, I am Seo Ye-sun, Director of the Library Industry Division at the Jeonju Library and Lifelong Learning Headquarters. Good to see you all. It is a great pleasure and honor to be able to stand in front of you, so many distinguished guests. Now, libraries are no longer just a place to read books. They have become places that connect people and books and cities. Today, I'd like to share with you a very special journey that began in Jeonju, the story of Jeonju Library Journey. This is the first. I'm going to start with the introduction of the city and the book of city Jeonju and so on. Let's start with the introduction of Jeonju. So we have a one-pan wood block publishing culture during the Joseon Dynasty. This is a cultural tourism destination, and this is the capital city of the Hu-Baekje, and citizens take a high pride in with the historical background. And Jeonju City has 149 libraries and 410 100,000 populations are the member of libraries, and we have established a lifelong learning headquarters, and with the vision of we have established a master plan. Then, how Jeonju has become a city of books. And start with the 1,000 history of Hanji, Korean traditional paper. And we have cultivated the mulberry, which is the source of the paper. And now in the Louvre Museum and Vatican Museum, this is used for the documentation of these renowned libraries. And at the late Joseon Dynasty, other than Seoul, for the first time in Korea, other than Seoul, we have a one-pan wood brick print books. It has Korean novels or 1,000 types of books has been published. And one of the bestseller is a Chunhyangjeon stories. The left side is a Gamyeongbon, which is a government edition, and there is an office responsible for producing books and lending books, and which handled official publications for government officials and the scholars elite. The right side, that's a Bangak edition, were commercial publications intended for the general public. And Jeonju Stream, this Bangak Bon has been produced and sold. There are 6 bookstores. So there is a Sapo Street was formed where Bangak edition was published and sold. And in the Joseon Dynasty, Jeonju has become a city of books. And back in 2021, it declared its vision, Jeonju, a city of books where books become life. And we have come up with a brand identity to strengthen Jeonju's branding as a city of books. And with the changes in society, with the library space innovation, we intend to change citizens' lives. And first, we start with the quote, which is a Jeonju Municipal Library. And Professor Ko Jae-min, the moderator, has provided us a lot of advice and expertise. The first milestone was the opening of Jeonju Municipal Library Koshim in December 2019. In the middle, it also features special book curation programs involving citizens' participation. In the library has become multicultural space where visitors can even encounter music in the lobby. And the highlight of Koshim is the 3rd floor, Ujuro 1216. That is for the twin generations. So Ujuro means we are the owner of the space. There are 4 areas. Tok Zone, which welcomes and greets visitors, and Kung Zone, where young people can release their energy, and the Suk Zone, the creative space for making things, and the Gom Zone, where visitors can quietly read and reflect. And next, this is a library more than 900 people visit. There's a hot place in Jeonju. That is the Ajung Hoso Library. This is a place, it has a 92-meter long lakeside library. It is a 101-meter long lakeside library. And through the space, visitors can enjoy LP turntables and CD players, where books, music, and lake come together. And so far, Jeonju has remodeled and reopened 9 libraries out of 11 existing libraries. Let us talk about one by one. Jeonju hosts the International Film Festival, and citizens can enjoy movies, Cinema Paradiso, where visitors can enjoy both books and film. And Kuma Library, which is the oldest existing library in Jeonju. In the lobby, the library operates an in-library gallery where visitors can view artworks. And Samcheon Library focuses on food culture, and Pyeongwan Library specialized in services for people with disabilities, and Songcheon Libraries feature the media creation space. Seoshin Library was established as Jeonju's first English specialized library. Wansan Library has recently become very popular because of the double cherry blossoms and nearby Wansan Flower Garden, attracting visitors from across the country. And this library specialized in writing programs, providing writing spaces for 22 citizens and professional writers for 6 months. And it's free of charge, but the writing should be themed with Jeonju. And we have a specialized or theme-based library. And we become a destination for library tourism. This is Book Pillar Library, located in the City Hall Library. The Book Pillar Library is organized around 4 pillars. Each pillar represents an element of reading ecosystem, libraries, bookstores, publishers, and reading clubs. And the space was curated with the hope that books and humanities will become strong pillars supporting citizens' life. This is a Yeonhwajong library. The point, line, plane, and empty space embodied in Korean aesthetic. I highly recommend visiting in the evening with the lotus blooming season. And the first impression of Jeonju, right in front of the Jeonju station, is the Traveler's Library at Majungil. And at the Haksan Forest Poetry Library, where poet Kim Yong-taek serves as an honorary director, visitors can enjoy poetry freely while looking out over the lake through the large windows. And Daga Travelers Library awakens the emotions of travelers and their sense of journey. And Seohak Art Village Library is a place where art flourishes, connecting local artists and citizens. And Hano Village Library and Dongmun Secondhand Book Library. Visitors can discover books that shaped novel figures' lives. And this is a Forkdale Library, a small but beautiful space designed by Professor Hyunjoon Yoo. A popular program featured 4 storytelling grandmothers sharing traditional stories with children. So each library has a different themes. And each space has their own stories. Words spread among citizens, and even people who have never visited the libraries before began coming naturally. So among citizens, they have voted which library is the most or best. So this led us to ask what kind of experience would allow books and libraries to naturally become part of citizens' daily lives. And how can we provide a special experience to citizens? After much discussion, we launched the program We Travel Libraries, the Jeonju Library Journey. The Jeonju Library Travel allows visitors to explore Jeonju's unique libraries based on their personal interests. This is first of its kind library travel program in Korea, began as a pilot program in July 2021 after establishing legal grounds through a municipal ordinance. The program has been fully operated since 2022. The highlight of the program is the professional docent who are recruited and trained. As of now, there are 9 docents are actively guiding the tours. By last year, 791 tours has been conducted. In addition, 1,635 organizations and 22,000 people visited Jeonju for benchmarking. As a result, Jeonju has gained nationwide attention as a city of library travel. Other than library, the program connects local cultural and tourism resources, expands them across the entire city. As at the Wanpanbon Culture Center, visitors can experience traditional wood block printing, and at the Hanji Culture Center, visitors can experience traditional Korean paper making, and they can enjoy lakes and gardens as well. And there's a growing national interest. During the first 3 years up to 2024, the participants were higher among Jeonju citizens. However, since last year, the number of visitors from other regions increased by 13%. And among the visitors, 40.7% stay in Jeonju for more than 2 days. That is revitalizing the economy. About 22% are repeat travelers. According to Korea Tourism Organization Data Lab announced last year, Jeonju was selected as a city expected to lead a text-to-hip trend. And this is because social media mentions of the library journey increased by 19% compared to the previous year. So MZ generation pay attention to this trip. Last year, it has been selected as a Proud Jeonbuk initiative and promoted at local broadcasting for 1 month. The Jeonju Library Journey operates in several formats: regular tours, institutional tours, book nuri programs, and cultural stay programs. And it is providing a distinctive travel model unique to Jeonju. Regular library travel tours, we started since last week, and we plan to operate 87 sessions every Saturday. 2 red tour buses operate 3 tours per day. There are 9 courses. The participation fee for adult is 6,000 Korean won, about $6 for full day, and $5 for half day. So this year we have newly established 3 courses. Pen drawing workshop and pen theme key ring making with bookstore owners, and garden walking course including a stroll and Deokjin Park and citizen-centered gardens. If you're lucky, you can take good photographs, and you may even see a family of authors. To help visitors record and remember special moments from their journey, we have produced a souvenir such as travel notebooks and tickets and key rings. An institutional program are open to library, educational institutions, and cultural organizations nationwide with 5 or more participants. The participation fee is about $50 per group, regardless of the number of the participants. However, transportation and docent fees are covered by the participating institution. And there's educational programs. In cooperation with the local Office of Education, we also operate the book nuri library journey for middle and high school special education students. We also provide hands-on experience and picture book storytelling programs, and the program is very well received by students. That makes me very happy as well. Next is a cultural stay programs. It's a workation lifestyle library journey designed for working professionals, have become very popular. Through cooperation with the Jeonbuk Cultural Tourism Foundation, the foundation provides a hotel, breakfast, travel passes, and insurance. Meanwhile, the libraries provide travel experience space and workation programs. This year, we are introducing Jeonju Stay for the first time. We plan 6 operations The book Najor course is a half-day program, and Check Hanbam course is a one-night, two-day program held at the book theme accommodation. And book and type, 1 day and 2 days is reading books, and it includes book-themed accommodations, everyday cultural spaces such as stationery shops, book spaces, and bakeries. While staying in these places, visitors can read books they never had time to read before, and it offers a unique journey combining cultural experiences, reflection, and relaxations. Now, Jeonju is developing program, and in collaborating with local reading ecosystem, we have created K-Library cultural contents. There are 3 major book festivals in Jeonju. And the 5th Jeonju International Picture Book Fair will be held in Sori Art Center of Jeonju. The guest country this year is Taiwan. And featured illustrator includes Kim Dong-sung and Jimmy Liao from Taiwan. Last year, Sarah Lundberg from Sweden and Baek Hina were invited. Jeonju Book Festival Chekkwe. The Chekkwe was a book peddler unique to Korea during the late Joseon Dynasty. So Chekkwe is a book curators or independent publishing promoters. In Jeonju, this tradition has been revived through the character called Him Sunbi. And the organizers said, come with an empty bag and leave with a full taste of books. It takes place in 2 days from 17 July. We look forward to seeing you there. And we have, since hosting the National Reading Festival in 2017, Jeonju has continued its own Jeonju Reading Festival. And last year, former President Moon Jae-in, known as the owner of Pyeongsan Bookstore, attended the event. I remember what he said. He said that Jeonju Reading Festival, which began during his presidency, continuing this day made it especially meaningful to him, which gives us great encouragement. Next is the next is Chekkung 20, a book love point system. When you return a book, 50 points are earned per book, and these points can be used as a 20% discount at participating local bookstores. Currently, 53 local bookstores participate in the program. This program reduces the financial burden on citizens while revitalizing local bookstores. It is now recognized as a model of mutual growth. These are what visitors have left as a comment. Jeonju Library are becoming a new hot place of the city. After library journey, I want to live in Jeonju. The only library travel program in Korea. It's fantastic. It is just a sum of many comments by visitors. And there are a lot of posts in blog or Instagram. I'd like to sincerely appreciate the great interest and support shown by the library journey. The K-Library serve as a hub connecting communities, and they also a driving force supporting citizens' growth. Now, with the power of K-Libraries, Jeonju will continue to connect the city and the world. We will survive to be Jeonju as a future model and brand of libraries. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Seo. It was a vivid story and inspiring story. When community connect with the identity, it can become a strong brand of the city. And it is a great possibility for libraries in many communities.
있습니다.
Let's move on to the second case presentation. Our speaker is Mr. Kuniaki Tanaka, architect from Kengo, Kuma Associate. The topic is Yasuhara Community Library and Sanjo City Library Complex in Japan. And he will be speaking in Japanese. If you need interpretation service, please use your receiver and channel 1. We would like to welcome our speaker with a big hand. Good afternoon. I am Kuniaki Tanaka from Kengo Kuma Associates. And I was responsible for these 2 public libraries in 2 villages. The first case about Yasuhara. It's down on the map. It's a small village with 3,000 people. And the distance would be between Seoul and Tokyo, very small and mountainous village. And then second case is about Sanjo, 100,000 people, mid-sized city. And the latitude almost the same as Seoul. In winter, it snows and very cold. So about the first case, Yasuhara Library, this is an overview of the facility. Since 20 years ago, Kuma Kenko constructed various buildings. So we have a connection with this city. And this is the 5th architecture project that we undertook in this village. And this city is driven by forestry industry. So it's a mountainous village surrounded by forests, and we brought in timber from those forests. And the village, one rule that we applied to these projects was to use local timber. You see 3 roofs. Here we have library and big one and higher one. This is a welfare facility. In this village or city, a library, it only had a little reading room, not a library. Learning about the village history and accessing relevant information. There was an aspiration of these local people, and the village didn't have a hospital. When people get old, they couldn't find a hospital. They had to travel to bigger cities. But what they wanted was, even they aged, they wanted to stay there and lead a healthy life within their community. So these were 2 overarching concepts behind the construction of this library and a welfare facility. So they sit on the same site. Here you see a photo taken back in 2015. On the left, you see Mr. Kuma Kengo, CEO of our architectural firm, still young with black hair. And then the elementary school was relocated in the middle, a red building. It was an elementary school gymnasium and green roof, a low-story building. It used to be a kindergarten. So these 2 on the left were renovated into a library. And here you see an air view of the site. So the elementary school is gone. And then welfare facility and library were newly constructed. Now gymnasium and kindergarten stayed. In the middle, we've created a plaza. Now this plaza surrounded by these 4 buildings. The elementary school was relocated to become integrated with a middle school. So elementary and middle school students continue to use these facilities, and people of all ages can come to this site and they can stay within this site. Professor Mo Jongryn mentioned this. And this truly becomes an anchor with this. People can come here anytime. And this is exactly the concept behind the construction of this project. This is an overview library. And then welfare facility. It seems like they look like one building built by one architect, and this is evident from the outside. Here you would see two buildings and the ground floor plans of these two buildings. In yellow, you will see open spaces, so anyone can come here. And it's connected with the plaza, for instance. So these yellow spaces are connected with the plaza, and this is the layout. In the middle, in the plaza, now all buildings have entrances toward the plaza. We have lawn, and the plaza and the buildings are connected together. And also buildings themselves are connected as well. Here you see a library and welfare facility connected, and they face each other, so they can look into each other as well. So these windows facing the plaza, they can open and close. So with this design, people read books by the window. And since these windows can open and close, people can just watch the lawn or can just lie down and reading books. So it's very open and relaxed. If you look at the nature of these spaces, it's open and relaxed. In Japan, we have book detention system across libraries. It means it's not allowed to bring out books outside a library. But this BDS system wasn't deployed within this library. It was our intention. When we got a request from the village, the BDS system was not part of it. It means people can just take out their books and read them outdoors. And in yellow, these spaces are all connected. And in red arrow, as you go up, then the density of books increases as well. And plaza in green, it means these spaces are connected with the plaza outdoors. And we have a big window for ventilation, so people can look in the lawn. And the ceiling is very noteworthy, the wooden part of the ceiling structure. And it's made from timber that was locally harvested, and shelves. The shelf boards were entirely made of wood sourced locally, and they were compressed to increase their strength. And the floor wood also comes from local timber. These were thinly sliced, and pressure was applied to increase strength. So across the entire space, these spaces were made of locally sourced timber. And across these spaces, people can just take off their shoes and use these spaces comfortably, taking off their shoes at the entrance, and then they can come in. And there was a reason for this. In Yusuhara, I've mentioned locally sourced timber, and we wanted people to feel the texture of these locally sourced timber materials. So when we go to Yusuhara, this is the way people behave, and we follow the rule within this library space. And actually, this is the space that I believe should be most prominent from your perspective. People take off their shoes. So it's a library, it's true, but it feels like in one's own living room, feeling very comfortable. Once people are taking off their shoes, now babies can crawl, moms can take some break and rest comfortably. Not just the little children, but adults find this space very convenient and comfortable, cozy. And these pictures, I think, best to represent the identity of this library. And in fact, when it was completed, we realized that this can be actually used by local people this way. And in Yusuhara, we have terraced rice fields. And so this structure was inspired by these terraced rice fields. Across each floor, people gather together and they can stay, and there are spaces allowing them to do so. We have change in elevation, so children find it fun traveling across stairs, so it becomes a playground in and of itself. Here we have a safety net where children can freely play, and bouldering. They can also climb. It's an experience and hands-on-based space for children. Overall, not just overall, we have 50,000 books within the library. So people are surrounded by books and wood. And then it's very much welcomed and loved by community people. The library itself was constructed, and this is the 5th architectural project making use of local timber. And it's a branding in itself. In terms of local history, how to use Yusuhara's local timber, and how to represent that as a local identity, that was one of the most important points of this project. And Kengo Kuma and associate paid extraordinary attention to this, which was a village with 3,000 people, a very small village, and a versatile application of timber. With this element alone, we were able to attract tourists, showcasing how timber can be used for various purposes. Now, let me move on to Sanjo, another city, and a library located in Sanjo. Now, Sanjo is famous for its metalworking industry. So you can see a library here in the photo, an old and closed elementary school. Now it was transformed into a cultural complex. In undertaking this project, Blacksmith Museum, Science Education Center were part of the theme. So an integrated and complex facility was the request of this project. It was not simply about building a library, but more than that, the aim was to infuse craftsmanship, the spirit of making and education, and passing on this spirit into future generations. So a concept-based facility and space. So a complex facility, cultural complex. That was the main theme of this project. And we were chosen as a designer through competition. This is an actual photo of the site when the project first began, a closed elementary school, so it's gone. Within this site, there were, for example, Tezuka architect made this engawa. So it's a floor space connected with outdoor spaces. So this is the photo of the site when it first began. Also, Morning Street Market and various workshops were being held at the time. Now, an aerial view of the site. So the elementary school site, we preserved the site layout. So schoolyard, courtyard, and the trees surrounding them, they were preserved. But in the middle, this is the only part. You will see a big void here. Now these 2 points are connected. So a new layout concept was introduced for this big void. Now this photo taken after the completion of this project, a big library and a mid-sized hall. And they encompass this open space, surround this open space in the middle. And these are photos after the completion of the project. So outdoor spaces are used this way, and the middle corridor and foreground view of the complex. So we have these open spaces, outdoor open spaces, and they are open to various purposes. When it snows, still we can accommodate people and accommodate events as well, even though it gets cold in winter. And in the following slide, it shows a floor plan of each floor. So 4 different colors were used to distinguish program functions. And color mixing, quite a lot of color mixing and lower stories. And then as we go up, you will see the library function was emphasized further. Now in the middle, under the roof, we have this open space, communal space. Now, Blacksmith Museum is located within the complex. So it looks like a factory if you look at the interior. And metallic and shiny interior elements were deployed. In the science hall, we used wood. And this is a big space for experimentation. We have a cafe, and we have spaces that can serve multiple purposes. Now, cross sections. So this is a multifunctional complex. And here we have skip floor. So metal and wood materials were mixed together. Now moving on to furniture and signage, billboards. So we have locally relevant or locally inspired colors and materials were used inside the complex. With this, Sanjo City is hosting the Factory Festival, a citywide event. It's an open factory format. So artisans use experiments and their factory facilities, and now this become open to tourists during the festival period. And this attracts people from overseas as well. And the library also participates in the festival. Within the library, as you can see, we have a tool lending program, not a book lending, but a tool lending program. It's a unique service. Dr. Skye Patrick talked about this. Even power washers can be lended. And in Japan, tool lending, the concept itself is very fresh and novel. And the response was positive. And let's compare these 2 projects, Yasuhara and Sanjo. We can compare the 2 in terms of population, size, and industry. So these are distinctively different 2 cases, and they had their own vision. And there are community members who like to stay. And these spaces were designed to fulfill the need. And when attempts are made to provide multipurpose facilities, considering the site and conditions, in Yasuhara, the library feels like one's own living room. That was the main concept. But in Sanjo, because it's a metalworking industry city, we wanted to create a more experimentation and laboratory-like concept. So we have different identities. It's not simply a library, but a library that inspires something new. So these 2 libraries, in a way, I believe, can provide you with new ideas. So please visit these 2 places. Whether it is Yasuhara or Sanjo, please make a visit. and experience these places. Thank you. So these libraries, they were presented in terms of space, content, and local resources. These were organically aligned together to highlight the identity of the community. So libraries can embed the stories into a physical identity. So, such an interesting presentation.
And so far, we have heard the keynote lecture and the main presentation and 3 case presentations. And we will now begin these ideas together and begin our panel discussion. We're going to carry out in-depth discussion. I believe there are many questions after listening to the presentations and lecture. We're going to open the floor for Q&A session. And those of you who are joining by online, you're freely ask your questions so we can communicate. This is not only a one-way presentation giving or lecture giving opportunity, but it is a two-way communication ways that we can discuss. So we're going to invite moderators and the speakers. The discussion will be moderated by Professor Jae-min Ko from the Department of Architecture at Suwon University. And all speakers and keynote speakers, please come to the stage. Professor Jongryn, Dr. Skye Patrick, and Ms. Yesun Seo, Mr. Kuniaki Tanaka, and Mr. Hyunjoon Yoo, please join us in the stage. We're going to have a panel discussion. Please welcome them with a round of applause. Let's start the panel discussion with a round of applause.
You have the floor, Mr. Moderator. I am Ko Jae-min, professor of Suwon University. It's great to see you all today. Such a rare opportunity to be joined by distinguished guests. And I think today the biggest challenge facing libraries in Korea would be, as presented, life-library. So going beyond the library to become a life-library where people's lives can be communicated. It's always been an issue and challenge for us. So under the 4th Library Development Plan, a platform for community solidarity and cooperation. That was the 2nd policy goal, and we're making progress, I believe. So, a cultural landmark, library embracing community. That's the theme of this international conference today. I listened to all the presentations, and I'd like to share with you a bit of my thoughts. So, usually we see international conferences held for the sake of formality, but today it's different. Starting with the anchor theory by Professor Jongryn and Dr. Skye Patrick talked about the specific programs that are implemented to make the library a community hub, and Ms. Seo talked about library travel and journey. And then Mr. Kuniaki, Tanaka, and Professor Hyunjoon talked about architectural meanings of their projects, both in Japan and Korea. Seems like a continuum of storytelling. So my impression today is highly satisfied. I'm very much satisfied with what was presented today, and it seems our speakers put into plenty of efforts, and we should be thanking them once again with a warm round of applause. Thank you very much. For on-site participants and those of you joining virtually, if you have any questions, I'm sure you do have many questions. And in the Q&A session, you're free to ask any questions you may have. And for those of you joining online, you may use the reply section of YouTube, and then we can accommodate your questions. We have 40 minutes that was given to us for discussion. So I'd like to pose my questions first, and then like to open the floor for questions. Are you okay with that? Because if I say, raise your hand if you have any questions, you want do that. So while you're thinking about your questions, let me pose my questions. Now, Professor Mo Jongryn first. So for landmark scale libraries already built, what local software programs and operational strategies would you consider most urgent to introduce in order for these libraries to function as everyday anchors deeply embedded in residents' lives? You talked about selling donated books, but here my question is, if Professor Mo, if you become a director of such a big library, big public library, and to make that a community anchor, what kind of strategies are you going to implement? When I look at your face, maybe my question is wrong, but it's truly my question to you. And selling donated books, so you don't think it's good? I think it's excellent. So, and I'm sure you have another such excellent idea. I think already a variety of programs were presented today, including travel program, social program, club, and writing. I'm sure you're familiar with these. But personally, I've been always thinking about this at the Yonsei University level as well. When you go to Yonsei University bookstore, then they do not have books by Yonsei University professors. So I find it regrettable, but it's changing slightly. Mr. Hyunjoon, you graduated from Yonsei University, right? We have a famous Nobel laureate, Hangang. And we have graduates, we have professors, or we have students. And they are all members of our community. And books created by members of our community, they should be displaced at the very forefront. Isn't that the case? But that's not the case. It's changing gradually, but when you visit a public library, I hope to see books addressing local content, whether it is travel, history, novel, or local authors. They should be at the very forefront of a local library to develop a sense of pride. That's one role that can be played by local libraries, and I find it critical. So we have a variety of programs, but at the very basic level, you can call it a local tradition, but I don't see why it doesn't work that way. Maybe your answer, as a librarian, your answer would be there's no demand for it. We don't see demand. The books desired by our community members are not those books. But I think this is a problem of egg or chicken. Maybe community members do not have the demand. It's because they cannot find those books in the first place. So if I were you, I would start with this. And I think there would be demand, a decent demand. I hope I answered your question, right?
네.
My second question goes to Dr. Patrick. So when we remodeling or built a new library, we try to hear the voices from the residents, and that is a demand survey. So we only do the demand survey only for the people who actually visit the library, but we do not do the demand survey for entire citizens. So we're going to remodel or build the library. What do we need? Then most of the answer is, please give us a learning space, self-learning space. The LA County Library said, it's ironically, reverse engineering committee. So with regard to that, how do you survey demand to the entire citizens or entire residents?
Thank you for the question. So this is a complicated response, but essentially reverse engineering is a way that we have decided to ensure that we are connecting with people. Essentially, that's really what it is. And so the bigger question that he's asking is, well, how do how do you get you people who are not users, how do you get their feedback? It's very simple. You have to use guerrilla communication. You have to have billboards, and you have to go to laundromats and make sure that you're in grocery stores and schools and places where people are congregating, faith-based communities, religious entities, where people are congregating, and make sure that they know what you're doing. That's one way. I think another way, and this, some people may agree or disagree, you feed them. You welcome them into your libraries with food. It's amazing how many people show up for free food. Not to minimize it, but you entice them with things that are important to them so that you can get their feedback. So it's really, I think every library in our country and arguably the world, we're challenged with trying to ensure that we get the voices of the masses. And so this is where I was saying earlier that it's an iterative process, and you have to be patient and make sure that you're using all different levers of communication, online communication, the hashtag communications, billboards, virtual, all kinds of ways. So it's not one way, it's many ways to communicate with other people that you want to get feedback from.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 그런 식으로 이제
Thank you very much for your answer. So you make a lot of effort to hear all the voices from all people. My third question goes to Ms. Seo Ye-sun. So we've seen the Jeonju case. You are very much impressed. The K Library, it is like a very good example. It's a very unique example in Jeonju case. It has a lot of cultural asset, like a space innovation, a lot of stories within Jeonju area. Though local areas who do not have much of cultural heritage or cultural asset, when they carry out library building, what could be the priorities or what are the things they should keep in mind? So we have talked about this a lot, that we listen to the citizens. That is the most important part. The first or most is we need to identify what is the needs of the citizen. That is the most important part. Each region, each library has different demands of the citizens. However, we need to listen through the discussion courses or discussion session. We will be able to understand the needs of the community. Then it can form the themes and concept that can configure the space. Then curation can be naturally done in accordance with the needs. With the case of Jeonju, when we reopen the library, in the process of listening the voices of the citizens, some of the theme of the library has been changed. For example, the Seoshin Library, in the beginning, the theme was work at home. But after listening the voices of the citizens, in Jeonju, there's no library based on English. So for the first time, we have English theme library. And when it comes to Samcheon Library, food is one of the main themes, but it is only focused on material documentations. But nearby Samcheon Library, there is a flea market that opens. So parents go to market, and the children can be stay in the library when the parents go to market. So within the children's library, so let us have a place, the playground within the library, so children can spend some time while I go shopping in the market. So in the first floor of the children's material room, there is a long slide that goes to the basement, so children can be happy. It serves as a playground for children. The second important point is so electronics or facilities, we need a close cooperation with the architect or facility maintenance. For example, in the process of listening and setting a concept and configuring space, in the end, when we purchase all the equipment, we need to work with librarians and the facility team members as well. That can create the best libraries, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. The fourth question goes to Mr. Kuniaki, Tanaka. So the cases you presented are not just about library, but about healthcare facility and a complex community facilities, and even science and cultural facilities serving as a community hub. So it means that these facilities of varying characters are connected as one. And then people of all ages can visit these facilities. And to make these facilities, what was your top priority in terms of designing these facilities? So when we say a stay-oriented space, now we have a single if there's only one type of staying within a single library, it becomes boring because people do not stay that long in any single space, not just libraries, but other facilities. If you look at Yasuhara Library, so people take off their shoes and they can stay in there. Or sometimes they can be surrounded by books, or they can use the lawn. They just lie down while reading books. So we have a variety of modes where people can stay within the facility. And in Sanjo Library, people can come to library, or they can visit the library for educational and learning purposes. Sometimes people participate in an experiment, or people come to have a hands-on blacksmith experience. So multiple factors should be combined. And whether it is snowing, raining, or windy, still a space should be available for multiple experiences. So multifunctional complex. That was my priority. I'm sure that answered your question, right? And within a space, also it should be we need to enable people to find other spaces starting from one place. For example, a gradation or connecting two facilities in a very novel ways. Rock climbing, for example, rock climbing space within a library, you may think it doesn't fit that much, but we're combining different and distinctive elements because people's areas of interest all differ. Maybe they doesn't seem like they're connected, but we have made these bouldering spaces. And in fact, for local people, it ensures that they are willing to stay longer in the space of library. Thank you for your answers. The fifth question goes to Professor Hyunjoon. I'm an architect myself, but also I'm a librarian. So I travel across the country and I meet with librarians. I give lectures, and I even made this program at the request of librarians, which is so public buildings are constructed through competition. So we get proposals. So we have winning proposals, and then we have proposals that were not selected. And I let librarians compare these two groups. And then, not just during the lecture, but also for these librarians overseeing a project, among different options, I do love D, but they didn't realize, never, for these winning proposals. So I think people are really paying attention to this. For example, we have sculptures and sculpture-like proposals. Then the question is, Why do architects prefer such a sculptural architecture? So do you think the same way? That's one question that I receive frequently. But also, I'm a librarian. And then, on behalf of all the librarians here today, let me ask you this question. Aside from such sculpture-like architecture elements, you've designed a library, family-friendly and community-centered library. And what were your priorities in designing the library, and what do you think of the challenge that I have just described? So I often participate in competitions. I sometimes win, but I also serve as a judge. And it never happened that my favorite became a winning proposal. That never happened. And I think many of you would feel the same way. For your information, but generally speaking, as you said, so among architects, something that looks fabulous from the outside, that it's often chosen as a winning proposal. But as an architect in real world settings, so 건축 in Korea means building up, and the time building, that's how a building is constructed. The biggest reason why we make a building is to make empty spaces. Why empty spaces? These spaces should be filled by people who use those spaces. So of course, we need to think about functional aspects, but also we need to think about person-to-person relationships. But to express these and manifest these, this is a challenge in the competition phase. So when I presented my project, I've imagined a space where people come in and read books, and then a library just as an empty space. These two are completely different. When people come in, that completes the whole picture. So when we look at the project on a human scale, then everything becomes different because that determines, for example, the location of windows and everything else. In a library, reading a book is a very individual and personal experience. Maybe people prefer a cornered space or a high ceiling. My favorite space is the stairs connecting the first and the second floors. Librarians were so sensible. It's because my intention was to make people sit just there. And then librarians created a comic book section where people can read comic books. Because primarily it's children who read comic books. They are small, and compared to adults, these young children would prefer spaces that doesn't really accommodate bigger sized adults. So they prefer stairs or very cornered spaces. So children find it comfortable to be in a rather confined and cozy spaces. And maybe sitting on the stairs, children feel I'm monitoring all those, I'm overlooking all those adults. So when designing the Gochang Library, my intention was to emphasize the personalized experience of reading books. And one of my priorities was roof windows. And this is drawing criticism, in fact, because books should not be exposed to sunlight. In spite of it all, I highlighted ceiling windows. We've applied UV blocking materials. Now, if you think of light, we have light coming from the side, but also we have light coming from the upside. So when we encounter nature, light often comes from the above, right? Except sunset or nighttime. But in our daily spaces, we often experience light coming from the inside. So it's completely different when you experience light indoors and outdoors. So I wanted to have light coming from the above. And depending on the weather and the time slot, then because of that light, the spaces take on different shapes. Of course, books could be damaged a little bit. But compared to medieval age, when we had manuscripts, it's not the case anymore. So preserving books is critical, but I think it's more important to make people come so that they can feel comfortable like their own living room. So in the end, So reading a book under the tree with sunlight, that's the feeling that I wanted to create. So if you look at religious architecture, light always comes from the above to create this sublime experience. So I consider just that. So exterior looking just like the Jeonju building, looking like a traditional building, but inside, I wanted to create this experience of reading a book under the tree. And across different corners, people can have different reading experiences depending on their mood that day. And depending on the type of book they're reading, it can be a detective novel, or it can be an investment book. So different spots for different types of books. That was really my intention behind the design. Thank you very much.
답변을 듣고 싶어하는 사람
So there are many people want to hear from you. There was only 20 minutes they were allowed. And so through this question, I had asked more detailed about Hyunjoon Library. So I'd like to open the floor. And so many people have been waited. If you have any questions, in particular, when you ask questions, please tell us your name or please raise your hand. Yeah, when the staff will hand over the microphone. Yes. I am from Siheung City in Central Library, Jeonju, in LA County Library. My question goes to Dr. Patrick. Now, the Korean case, there's a library, and within the library,
So we have library and also life learning center separately. And it means that within a library, we also like to present life learning programs, which creates conflict. When I look at your organization, your library also assumes a role as a life learning center as well. And given your local U.S. American culture, is it different than in Korea? Or in connection with local communities, are you implementing these life learning programs in connection with your local communities? That's my first question. My second question is about homelessness. Can you elaborate on your programs for homeless people?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, if I understand you correctly, I think I touched on this a bit in my presentation, where this idea of lifelong learning and how that can complement traditional literacies. The way that I view it, and I think maybe some of my colleagues in the United States may view this similarly, is that lifelong learning is a multitude of literacies. So that could be traditional book literacy, reading, writing. That could be programmatic. That could be learning new languages or different languages. So that's how we kind of approach it. We approach it programmatically and being a place of discovery, learning, and discourse. So from that vantage point, I don't see the two in conflict, but I can absolutely see how, as a traditionalist, if you are a traditionalist, how you might see those two values in conflict. I hope that answers your question. Your second question about homelessness. So for those of you who don't know, LA County, Los Angeles County has more homeless people than anywhere else in the United States. We have over 75,000 people who are living on the streets or living in what we call vehicular, in cars, essentially. So because we are a free entity, we communicate and interact with this community often. We take the position in LA County that people who are experiencing homelessness, and I use those words very deliberately because they're not homeless, they are experiencing homelessness. These are people. These are people who have needs, who use the library, who research, who use our computers to access resources, who use our social workers that I mentioned earlier to help get them rehoused. So we view them as people, and I think that that's appropriate. I also understand that that is inherently conflicting for some folks, but for us, this is really important. One thing that I'll also say really quickly, as a mechanism of learning for me, talking to my interpreter, is that here in Korea, South Korea, you really you try to take care of your people who are poor or who are experiencing homelessness so that you have very few of those folks. I say this is something that we in the United States could learn from South Korea because I don't think we do a good enough job. So they rely upon the social infrastructure, ground zero, which are public libraries.
네, 답변이 되셨을까요? 네.
Did I answer your question? 네. Another question from the floor?
Your talk. 꼭 얘기를 하고 싶어서.
I truly want to say in English for how thankful you are. So my question, I am from Jeonju City Municipal Library, Kim Soo-hyun, the librarian. So librarian, like architect or library directors, you are working at the library. So after build the library, what are the things that you want to say to the librarians who are on site? As a directors or as a director or as an architect, what are your messages to librarians? From Professor Ko, I want to hear everyone. Well, actually, I need to moderate, so I want to answer at the last. The question is grand and fresh, and it is excellent question, and you're asking by all people here on the stage. It is meaningful. So from everybody's perspective, what are your messages to the librarian? Professor Mo, would you like to start? I don't think you like it very much, but I'm going to be rough and honest. Well, I want to know as well. From the social science or economic, and when I switched to my study field in this areas, I meet a lot of architects and librarians. I'm not so used to the ethics of their jobs. So today, this is a librarian training center. This is very interesting. What do you learn? I thought, and I looked at the program, and the program of librarian. Just like everyone other, like a more professional training, technical focused program. The world is changing very rapidly. The expertise is not helping very much. That's the era that we're living. Digital will be replaced by AI. Not only the librarians, but architects or all professionals need to become a community activist, just including myself. So in the community, as a local asset could be designed. This is content that AI cannot duplicate. The same is true with the business or libraries. Inevitably, we become a local activist, including myself. So the training program of librarians to become an anchor of the communities. Librarians, I'm not sure if you get those kind of train. Like it's called the local branding in my area. Local branding can be added, and I can come anytime to give a lecture. There's not much experts in that area, so that's what I can help while looking at the program. Thank you. Thank you.
Question, and I will say a couple of things, and I did touch a little bit on this in my presentation. As research professionals, I think we have a lot of value that we underestimate ourselves, and we underappreciate ourselves. And so at this point in time, as it pertains to AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and large language models, we have the role of what I call truth-telling. And so what do I mean by that? I mean that right now, in this time, artificial intelligence and machine learning, it makes a lot of mistakes. And as researchers, you have the ability and the intellect to call those mistakes out and help communities guiding your users or patrons or customers through misinformation and disinformation. I don't see that changing in the near future. That being said, as we reimagine our libraries, our building spaces, I think what I hear you touching on is how do we then retool the profession for the 21st century? So one of the things that I see that I believe, based on research and based on communication, is that artificial intelligence can't replace the human component. It can't replicate humanity. It can call information through large language models. It can use information and not cite where it gets it from. So it's highly problematic, at least at this juncture. But it cannot replace the human contact, the people who come to see you at your libraries because they know that you know their next book, that you know what their kids like to read or what they like to do, or that the senior citizen who comes in to read the newspaper, but they want to talk to you, the librarian, about, you know, today's interesting events. So that can't be replaced, and I think that is our superpower.
네, 감사합니다. 네네. 우리 서혜선 과장님도 네.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Saw. 2 years ago, I have done the remodeling 3 libraries, Seosin and Wansan and Gosim libraries. At that time, so Jeonju became a library travel city, and librarians, whenever we do the library, remodeling the library, we want to extend ourselves. We want to do more. So the next library should be better than the previous one. It was like a competition. So what come across to my mind when I do the project, I am a librarian, but I have a view of the designer or architect. It was disheartening that I do not have the sense of the designer or architect. So with our staff, we have done a lot of meetings and discussions. For example, one light, if we try to buy a light, we went to travel all the way to Paju, nearby Seoul, from Jeonju. And we also visit furniture complex. I travel 5 times to select all the furniture that will be installed in the library. So the most important thing is, so library is beloved space among people. Library is only cannot do that, but we need to collaborate with architects and engineers. Continuously, we need to communicate. And we need to sharpen the sense of designing or architectural aesthetic view. Thank you.
우리 타나카 선생님도 한 말씀 부탁드립니다.
And thank you, Mr. Tanaka. So my message for librarians, I'm responsible for design, architectural design. So as an architect, if I give you my one takeaway message, I solicit feedback from users. And of course, I would like to talk with actual users, but that's not possible because such a channel is not available in most times, which means I would only collect feedback through librarians. So librarians become the representative of end users. So for libraries, your feedback as librarian, in a way, is a formidable force, I would say, because without your recognition, then the library would not be operable properly. But inversely, as an architect, as a designer, my opinion is I would also have my opinions about the way a library should be operated. So, as a librarian, you may feel that you're forced to operate your librarian because of my feedback as a designer. So in the initial phase, I think communication is pivotal. Designers are not here to force librarians to do something. So as an architect, don't put excessive weight on my feedback. And also, as an architect, we love sculptural elements and aesthetics. Librarians prefer convenience, but as an architect, we will prioritize aesthetics. That's what is widely believed. But as a professional, we're a bit of inclined towards specific directions. But as a designer, we write layouts, and then it's still in the making process. So just give us your feedback. It's because we are supposed to be inclined anyway. So just give us your feedback, collect feedback from your citizens, and then just give us your feedback. Whether it is a library or a museum, we're afraid of curators and librarians, in fact. And we are always mindful of your feedback as a librarian as we prepare our layout. So just give us your feedback. And then designers are not forcing you to take action any specific ways. So I hope we can foster communication and interactions that way. Thank you. And Professor Hyunjoon, please. So as an architect, every architect has his or her own perspective. When it comes to architectural design, this is the result of problem-solving efforts. So everything we have in nature, they have gone through evolution as a result of solving a problem. The shape of a tree, the length of a branch, all of it is a result of problem solving, but it means we need to define the problem correctly in the first place. But here in Korea, when I join and participate in competitions, we often say OR, owner's requirement. So the owners do not specify their requirements. And when the design phase is over, for example, when the construction phase is over, the owner says, please change this or change that. And then it doesn't happen that way because in the initial phase, if we design this, sometimes such sculptural aspects will be integrated. And then when the winner is chosen and the owner comes and say, you need to change this and change that. And it means we need to go back to ground zero. But for architects, we have spent all the money and the permit was given already, which means we have a limited room for maneuvering. If we heard such requirements initially and we can define the problem correctly in the initial phase, then we're taking the very first step correctly. But as in Japan, we have a traditional, if you want your library to foster communication, so letting people to go out the plaza and reading books, I think this is really critical. So defining your requirements and your design philosophy. in the initial phase. You shouldn't come in the later stage. You should come in the very initial phase during the competition phase. It's because owners will create an overview, but sometimes people just copy and paste. Just the site becomes different. So the correct definition, that's the first initial mandate. And then choose the right architect and then trust him. Our librarian said we need to develop a sense of aesthetics, but it shouldn't be your own sense of aesthetics. You should always consult your architect. As to the Hwang Young-seok library, librarians and public officials all consulted me throughout the process. And they said, without your green light, we won't change anything. So I was so grateful. But that's a rare case. So a maid library in Jeonju that I created recently, and the owner made money in Japan. And I find that owners coming from Japan, they have the best ever attitudes. We need to learn from them. I was surprised because we designed a cafe and we thought about, we got confirmation from the owner about every type of chair. I give them my feedback, and then it's all accommodated. Even the logo and signage, we get confirmation from the owner.
감사합니다. 두 가지 측면.
Thank you for sharing your view, the two different perspectives. Now, it's a time pressure. We have only 4 minutes left. So let me conclude. And please understand there's no more opportunities to open the floor. So, my message to librarians, there's only one message. It's an era of AI. What will happen in the future is, in the libraries, there's a lot of challenges. In the AI era, a universal high income era, everybody will have nothing to do. It is an era of reflection, an era of thinking. And there are a lot of people in our hand. What are we going to do? The central space will be library. So librarian, I think, is a soul therapist. So the people's thinking and long time of reflection will be led by you, librarians. So you have a lot of work to do. I know it's a difficult job. Take your pride. And instead, you need to sharpen and collect more information in different areas. And librarians will become more important people. You're laughing, not laughing at me, right? So let us cheer up and let's prepare for the era of AI. Thank you very much. And speakers, thank you very much. And all the answers were magnificent. Last but not least, let us say fighting, which is cheers up. Let us give us fighting to ourselves. Thank you. Let's give them a big hand one end. This is the last session of the International Forum celebrating Library Days and Library Week in 2026. It was a wonderful moderating by Professor Ko, and thank you for sharing your views by speakers. How did you enjoy your panel discussion? So library is no longer than a collection of books, but it is a place that connects people and culture. It is a complicated platform. And today's discussion will help libraries in every area to look for another opportunities and potential. And tomorrow, April 10th, the Library Day ceremony will take place at Yeongdeung-pogu Jeonju Library. The event will also be streamlined live on YouTube. We hope you will continue to show interest and join us. So thank you for joining us. And those of you who are joining us through online, thank you for staying with us until the end. This concludes the 2026 International Forum in celebration of Library Day. Thank you.